openers.
So the FBI investigates swatting surge affecting public figures. Several high-profile individuals, including Gunther Eagleman, Sean Farish, and Nick Sorter, have recently been victims of swatting incidents where their homes were targeted by false emergency calls. The FBI under Director Kash Patel has acknowledged the increasing trend and is actively investigating these events. He's actively investigating these events to address the issue of swatting, emphasizing that it isn't a political matter, but one of safety. Okay, so he's saying that he's not doing it for like political motivation from his aspect. It's one of public safety. And I did see that he added the caveat that not only does it put the victims' lives, their families' lives in danger, it also endangers the lives of the FBI agents or the whoever it is that's conducting these swattings, the local law enforcement and stuff like that are going. And so it's
right.
It's obviously reprehensible. I think is probably the best word to describe it. It's essentially trying to get somebody killed by the police, and it happens. I believe it happened just last year. The police called an individual to come out of his house. I don't know what the circumstances were, but the individual didn't make it out alive. So whether he walked through a shadow or his arm moved weird or whatever, it takes one DEI hire to pull the trigger. So,
right.
Pretty crazy scenario.
Well, we had the early story of when somebody had swatted, I believe it was Marjorie Taylor Greene, but it actually caused, by consequence, there was an accident with like one of the ambulances that was like on the way somewhere, got into like a car accident, something like involved with that. But again, it's been happening, and now what we're seeing is obviously a coordinated effort to do so. The list is a bit longer than what even World listed off there. A lot of smaller influencers have been getting targeted. Even had people like Juanita Broderick also got targeted, who she's recently become a conservative influencer since her involvement with some kind of high profile case where she was the victim of, and I'm forgetting, so Lord forgive me, but some kind of profile case that she was involved with where she was victim in it. But it started with the InfoWars journalist who got murdered. InfoWars journalist got murdered literally 24 hours before, even if less than that. Chase guys are being involved in this too. Nick Sortor, his parents, and they're all the same kind of MO too.
His
I
sister
read into it a little bit. They're sending pizza to these people's houses, and they're doing that because they're using that as the proxy to determine if they're home or not. So if pizza delivery goes out and then it gets returned, well, they call the callback number, who's the swatter, and they say, hey, we weren't able to deliver the pizza, no one answered the door, or something along those lines. We didn't get the money for it. And then that's how they know, okay, they're not home. And then if somebody does answer, they complain. Well, then they go back to the callback number, and then now they have an idea the person must have been home because they interacted there. And then they swat them thereafter. So if you're getting pizza sent to your house and you didn't order it, it's like a telltale sign like you're about to get swatted in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't even know that pizza aspect was going on. But yeah, I mean, I think I listed 3 people, but Chase Kaiser has been swatted twice. He's one of the InfoWars dudes. Nick Sorter's dad, his parents, and I believe his sister were also swatted. I mean, it's a lot of people. Even the special guest on Timcast last night, he was talking about it. He's a dude that started a podcast up from the Timcast Discord. So he's like a littler channel or whatever, similar like what we are. And he's like, I'm still even concerned about it for myself. And so, what people have been saying, like the quartering and Tim Pool, is that folks like us should actually be calling the local police department and telling them that, hey, look, we got a bit of a following, and these things have been going on around the country to people in the same space. Here's who I am, blah blah blah, to kind of introduce yourself and kind of help the tensions in these situations be eased by more information, basically, in relationships. So it's pretty crazy how how people have to change their lives around just based on this type of stuff.
Well, I think what I'd heard it from, and I think I might have heard this off of maybe it was from the Tempo podcast. But this is kind of an early sign of what to expect this summer. I think with the way that people are going to protest, but I use that word lightly. It's never really a protest for very long before it turns into a riot or just full out just vandalism or some kind of like attack or assault or, a gang attack on something. Um, what's and you kind of look at this from the frame of what we see with Luigi Mangione and what you're getting from like Bill Burr. So you combine all these elements together, right? Bill Burr had basically said, that was a good thing that it had happened. And he said something like "Free Luigi," something along those lines. I forget what interview he was doing it with.
Yeah, I've heard it. I can't remember what he was doing it on. Was he talking to like Jimmy Kimmel or something like that?
It was like a high profile interview.
I can't remember who it was, but yeah, this the second time that he's gone to the well and said "Free Luigi," which I mean, Luigi Mangione is accused right now of murdering somebody in cold blood. And that's
right.
not a good look for Bill Burr or the Democratic Party, if you ask my opinion. But
right. Well, I mean, I think either you look at it from this perspective of he sees the writing on the wall and he's like, yeah, like definitely get those millionaires. Like I'm not one of those millionaires, like, or, get one of those billionaires, however that phrasing is at. Or maybe he just genuinely feels that way. But this is also, again, I mean, a couple of days removed from Hassan calling for Rick Scott, something, for a call to action against him. So I would expect when the weather begins to get warmer nationwide, we're going to see a lot more of these kind of very politically motivated. Well, it's hard to say anything besides attempted murder, right? Because that's what swatings are. But I would just expect that kind of political warfare, civil war kind of stuff to pick up.
Politically motivated attacks, right?
Right.
Something like that. And you're right. Granted, down south, it's been nice weather here for a decent amount of time. This hasn't been nice weather all over the country, and some of these states, that are further north, essentially seem to be kind of the hubs of where we see a lot of these political, riots, protests, that type of thing. Portland is up there pretty far north. So is New York, all that type of stuff.
Yeah. And, I kind of think of it a little bit as it's just so sad to see sometimes, but there's probably, and people in the chat are probably seeing this as well. There's another kind of viral video going out and it starts a little late. And I haven't seen the full context of it, but I've seen it multiple times on my feed now, where it seems to be, it looks like a Mexican, like teenager or high schoolers, a Mexican high school guy has like this black girl in dreads by like her hair. And he's like restraining her the entire time. Ultimately, like she keeps fighting back, and he eventually, like, I think it's like a laptop or something, he slams her head into something.
It's a
desk. And I see quoted a big kind of very, Black Lives Matter kind of individual quotes it, and the entire thread is like how they doxed where this area was at. We know who we need to be going after. They're like listening out. And it's just like a thread of all these people, like just based on race. Like, I know there was black men in that. I know there was black boys in this classroom, and they were scared of a Mexican, like all these kinds of things. And it's like a tweet that's got 40,000 likes on it. And it's like, they're all liking the fact that they want to go fight on a video that was like 40 seconds long. Like, sure. Yeah. No one, like what the kid did probably wasn't the best thing, but you don't have the full context. And it's like, now what, a 17, 16-year-old Mexican kid's getting targeted by the entire adult black community. Well, it's that kind of stuff where people are like seemingly very willing to go do things that are illegal.
Well, from what I understand from that situation is the girl there is a school bully, and I didn't deep dive into it, but from what I understand, she was the antagonist, and she was, if you watch it closely, it looks like she punches him or slaps him, knocks his glasses off. And then she's scratching his face, scratching like near his eyes and stuff. And I think that's whenever he finally slammed her, and not saying that he should have, but he was definitely like twice her size. Right. And I don't understand why a person would be going at somebody in that manner unless they felt protected, right? Why would somebody so small attack so viciously and not just back away? Because she had, in my opinion, she had plenty of opportunity to just back away. And you know, that was obviously not handled very well by the peers and the teacher and whoever else was around, you know, additionally on top of that, because it went on way too long and it ended up with her unconscious on the floor. And you know, that's when brain damage can happen and stuff like that, when people are around that don't know how to essentially wake a person up that has been knocked out, and you know, all that type of stuff. So crazy scenario. I see Jamie actually is a new member. Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate you for doing that. That is cool. Hope everything's going well with you. I know that you were right there in the middle of all the windy stuff yesterday. So,
oh yeah,
but yeah, but I want to get back to the swatting thing real fast. FBI Director Kash Patel has responded. He put out a post on X from his FBI Director Kash Patel account. I want to address the alarming rise in swatting incidents targeting media figures. The FBI is aware of this dangerous trend, and my team and I are already taking action to investigate and hold those responsible accountable. This isn't about politics. Weaponizing law enforcement against any American is not only morally reprehensible, but it also endangers lives, including those of our officers. That will not be tolerated. We are fully committed to working with local law enforcement to crack down on these crimes. More updates to come. And the reality of the situation is they're probably never going to figure out who these swatters are. I think the quartering tried to claim that they caught his swatter, and a lot of people assumed that that was the same person that was swatting everybody before, including Tim Pool and some of these other people. But Tim Pool doesn't believe it's the same person, to be honest. And from the way that I've heard it kind of broken down, these types of attacks can be conducted, you know, fairly easily. I hate to say it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, easily, but also like via hitman. Like Tim was also explaining that like he believes that there's these individuals who coordinate these attacks, just pay people to be the ones who dial the number.
Right.
That way it gets traced back to them, like the kind of the hatchet man, as he would, if you will.
Yeah.
Instead of the one who's like coordinating the stuff. But
yeah, exactly,
without you're not having to use voice changers and being able to use generative AI for all this to like speak voices and say things, it's going to be just a trace of data and numbers. That's all you're going to have really to be able to find out who it is.
Yeah, definitely. So unfortunately, it's, you know, make swatting butt whoopings again. That's right, Earl's daughter. Make it go back to the good old days.
Yeah, well, it's just a bit of a violation too of, you know, obviously personal safety and privacy.
Right.
You know, maybe a little bit different compared to, you know, say someone breaks into your home. I know a lot of people have issues even staying in the home after the fact, or kind of have some really bad trauma with that. It can't ever feel secure.
Yeah.
Especially if like they were home when it had happened. But swatting is kind of on that same level as well. And the reality is though too, like a lot of these conservative influencers do have the means in place where they have connections with like law enforcement, or it's happened multiple times. So they kind of have like an order of operations now to take care of them. So it doesn't mean there's like a slight chance of like an accident or something happening. But seeing it happen to a lot of these small timer guys as well now is what's a bit more concerning. Like with Chase Geyser, for example, his video was released a bit earlier because obviously he just lives in a regular area, doesn't live in like a compound or like isn't getting swatted at like his studio by any means. He's getting swatting at where he lives at. So that's a bit more scary because family's involved. But Nick Sortor's parents were targeted. And that's going to be people who are going to be like, have no idea what a swatting even is. They're going to be, you know, be just as concerned as the officer. And a lot of the times it's the swatting comes across just like, oh, they just did something to my daughter, or they have this person held hostage. And so like they're responding as like as fast as humanly possible.
Right.
But, you know, it does get a bit more terrifying to think that if that begins to stretch and becomes a bit more commonplace in what the left does, or I mean, just in general, and people want to have something politically carried out against someone they don't like, that's something to kind of fear over, because now it's like, now if you did have something actually happen where you needed the police, but you were like in a famous position where you're getting swatted all the time, the cops could be like, oh man, they're all right, they're good. But it's like now something for legitimate is going to happen. So with these people, it kind of desensitizes that. So then say somebody does move in to go do something, they probably just bought themselves an extra 10 to 15 minutes to do something because everyone's first thought will be, oh, it's just a swatting. I've heard this all before. In reality, it might be something legit that time.
Yeah, true. And it's it's one of those things where you can't, I don't know, you can't like boy that cried wolf that story. They got to take it seriously every time, and um, it's just a crazy reprehensible action that people would, you know, weaponize the local police departments and stuff against people because of what they said on the internet.
Right. Well, I'm going to take a second, see some of the chats here. We'll catch up before we move on to the next topic.